Thanks everyone for joining today, the first of our 2021 webinar series. Today's goal is to create an understanding of how VR impacts training and memory retention in adult learning. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of pre-trip inspections and how iMVR software, Iris, is impacting the new way of training, strengthening, and memory retention. Before we get started with all this, I just wanted to confirm and do a sound check with everybody. Everybody will be muted throughout the recording, and we do welcome all questions throughout in our chat line. Should we not be able to address everybody's question in our 1 hour time, we will be reaching out to each and every one that have attended today with a response to the question. We're open to all questions. Looking forward to your feedback and enjoy. I'm very, very grateful to have Ian Walters here with us today to facilitate our pre-trip inspection. Ian has 23 years on-road enforcement, 23 years of observing, listening, inspecting, educating, and training our professional drivers on highways. He finished the last 5 years of his career with the MTO in facility audits, working with the carriers inside, educating and enforcement. Lead instructor on cargo securement. That's Ian's passion. Understanding, and as many of us know Ian as, is Mr. Low Securement. CBA National Instructor, training and mentoring many MTO officers, training and mentoring many OPP, regional, and many professional drivers out in their careers today, and still continuing to do so. Ian facilitated our sister company with their hands-on workshops. And for those of you that may not be aware, that's where iMVR was born from. Being able to go back and replay and physically be able to get in and look around and do a pre-trip, be able to do load securement, but be able to do a replay and to be able to do it hands-on. We'll get back to that. So yeah, Ian, I'd love to introduce Ian Walters.
Hi. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, welcome.
Nice.
Right?
Yep.
Definitely sign of the times and whatnot.
For sure.
Yeah, very, very happy to have yourself here. With 23 years you've had with the MTO on the roads and whatnot, you know that drivers don't always complete a proper pre-trip, right? You're getting excuses, which I know you've heard so many of, whether it be from weather, just latency, being pushed. What are you finding? What do you recommend, and what's happened?
Well, one thing that I can recommend to companies and the operators that are out there, the pre-trip inspection is one of the most important things that you can get your drivers to do. It's your front line of defense, and so often saw that out there, and the fact that a lot of drivers don't do them correctly. A lot of them don't know how to do them correctly. They fumble through and things get missed.
Yeah, totally understandable, and it makes sense. And with that being the front line, if they don't know and understand or can't review, it makes total sense,
Exactly.
right? It's that,
yes.
I think it's that understanding, and when they understand, they're not intentionally going down the road with that. It's just, they're just not understanding the consequences.
Exactly.
But speaking of consequences, as you moved on and you did the facility audits for the last 5 years, right? We know that there's, I'll know that the concerns or the issues with the driver. Again, it could be driver and carrier. It could be coming into the facility audit and then it charges happening again.
Correct.
as well as, all going back to the PTI, where they've been,
Exactly.
everything combined into that. So as you finished your career, in the last 5, and educated carriers as you went through the facility audits and whatnot, what was your findings? Like, what do you feel?
Not only can they get bitten in the proverbial on the road, it's the fact, like as you mentioned, in doing the facility audit, they can get bit again.
Yeah.
Because you treat every inspection as a time marker on the road. So when a driver gets stopped, your vehicle is the time marker. They'll go back and look at that vehicle again in the audit. So a wheel with spokes. Was the inspection done properly at the beginning of the day, all documented on the driver's pre-trip? But did the officer find a defect? Did that driver note that defect? Are there repairs? Whether the driver fixed it or a repair order, was it towed? Those are other things that will follow up. When you get to the office to do the facility audit, are all those documents in order? Is the inspection there? Are the work orders there? Everything completed properly, you'll get full points in the audit. If you don't, you'll lose points. If any one of those spokes are missing, it can bite you in the proverbial again.
Yeah.
So pre-trip inspection, ultimately it's important on the road before you start your day.
Yeah.
And ultimately important for when you're trying to get that facility audit for insurance purposes, CVR, sanctions or whatever.
Yeah. And by having that training in place already, by having everything in line and in place, is only going to give you a better defense when need be.
Exactly. Because there is all the files and everything else. What have you done to promote your driver's safety, your vehicle's safety? Have you got something in place that they actually did? You gave them pre-trip inspection training. They didn't just come to you saying, yeah, I got it in my driving training when I got my A license, D license or whatever. You've actually shown that you're proactively doing everything you possibly can. Due diligence is the key word.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that care and comfort that you have, so everybody around, when they understand, okay, they're comforted and you've got a better, safer driver out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've been with us in the evolution of iMVR software, Iris. How would you say, if this was available years and years ago, but how would you say this would be able to mitigate the challenges? You know what I mean? Maybe be able to get that message over that a little bit across to drivers. What is your feeling out of, understanding time we put to make now we have this product?
Again, we go back to that training. When we talk about, everybody does a pre-trip inspection, whether or not they know it. Have they actually have done training courses? And I always ask the drivers, have you ever looked at the Schedule 1? And I ask them to honestly answer it. And most of the times they'll all sit there and I'll get maybe 1 or 2 people will say they actually read the Schedule 1. My next question to them then is, if you didn't read Schedule 1, how do you know the items you're supposed to inspect, let alone what constitutes a minor or major defect? You don't know. Now you're going out on the road with all that rolling freight and you haven't got a clue what's going on. You can't go, we talked about complacency. The drivers, I don't have to check it today. I got auto slacks. I don't have to check it today. It's raining out or it's dark when I started my day, so I'm not going to check the wheel nuts or I'm not going to check this part of the truck. That'll be the day that it'll let you down, and I've seen it more than once. Driver complacency, and that it can lead to deaths. Not only that, take one break out of adjustment. If you weren't trained to properly do it, you skip that one day. One break out of adjustment can cost thousands of dollars. It can cost out of service depending on how many brakes are on that vehicle, CVR points, insurance rates, sanctions, it all adds up. So it can get you if the drivers are properly trained and followed up with training and have it in their head. It's something that you remember to do daily. Don't skip a thing. You can go around your truck. You can inspect an 18-wheeler. If you're mechanically inclined, you drive that rig every day. I could do a full inspection measuring its brakes and everything else with the assistance of a driver though in 20 minutes. So a driver can do it pretty quick. Companies have to give them that time. Make sure, because as I said, it's your front line of defense. Give the driver the education, give the driver the time to do it. And a follow-up and backup to that is with the iMVR system. It's a controlled atmosphere. You can throw defects in it. You can check your drivers to make sure they know what constitutes defects through the iMVR system, and you can put drivers through that easily on slow day or on bad weather and that. When the driver's got some time, let's make sure you know, because they are your front line. So it would definitely be an asset for them to run through a system like you've developed here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Like with that being said, it's very interesting. Frontline, yes, they are frontline workers. Yes, they are essential workers. They're also professional drivers, and there's a reason they're professional drivers. And it's not drivers; they're professional drivers, and there's a reason behind it, right? It's all the training, the education, and their understanding, right, that brings them to where they are. I guess as we mentioned, Matt, why don't we just roll right through, and we'll go through to a pre-trip with our driver.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Sure.
Okay.
So, have the tractor. So, starting the inspection, starting the front of the tractor, we're going to test the headlights. It showed there on the ground already that they were both functioning. The turn signals, checking the ID lights and the cluster. Looking for any visual damage to the windshield at this point as well. Checking the grill area. Who's checking the mirrors, checking the license plate as well, and anything else that may be on the front of the truck. Now, when you slides around to the side and check under the hood, your signal light was flashing there. Opening the hood, transports himself up there to look into it. Steering components are in here. Brakes, suspension are in this area. Visible frame that's there, anything, and then into all your fluid levels. And a tip at this point too, when you're checking the push rod travel, you're checking that suspension, you're look at U-bolts in these systems. If there's the U-bolts going through the axle, if there's no dirt around the bolts going through, generally if there's no dirt, it's because movement doesn't allow dirt to seat in its place. So it can be a tip to the driver that there's something could be moving there. So to check that a little closer. Now looking at the front left wheel, front left steer wheel, you've got fasteners, wheel fasteners, your hub levels. It has indicators on this as well. There's your hub level in there. Checking for any cracks or anything in the rim itself. And another tip for this, look for rust bleed. Rust bleed from the steel rims around the studs, or magnesium runoff from the studs. Also, it could be any hole-to-hole cracks, stud hole to stud hole, or bent hole, hand hole to hand hole. So look at those cracks to see if there is any rust bleed. That can always lead to wheel problems. There was numerous times myself and fellow officers at the truck inspection stations would have trucks rolling through, and we could see from 10 feet away that there was a wheel issue, be it rust bleed or magnesium or cracks. Parking the vehicle in the inspection area, we find under further inspection that yes, there was cracks. When asking the driver about it, the driver would say, it was dark when I started my day, so I did not see those defects. So, and those can also be placed into the iMVR as well. Those kinds of defects can be shown. Okay, so now moving around to the driver's side of the cab. Check to make sure that the mirrors are all intact, everything's good there, they're working, nothing's loose. Annual inspection, it's always good, even though it's a preventative maintenance thing, it's always good to make sure you're not driving a truck with expired and slip through the cracks. Check your fuel tanks. Check for the security, the straps on it, the fuel cap is there. Any leaks down below on the ground before starting the day, if there was any leaks, it would surely show on the pavement or on the road surface, whatever it was in your parking lot down below. Between the tractor and the trailer, he's moved to here. He's checking his lines. You're checking your air pressure lines, you're checking your electrical connections, everything is in and secured. There's nothing on the catwalk. Looking at any exposed frame that you can see at this point, and your exhaust. Checking all these items down through here. You can see the front of the fifth wheel. Now getting into the drive axles. You're checking the fifth wheel. You're checking everything again as far as wheels, rims, fasteners, the same way. Make sure there's nothing that's bleeding out from any of them. Fluid levels in any hubs. Checking between your tires as well as tire tread depth. Make sure there's no tires are in contact with each other or any part of the vehicle other than mud flap. Going in behind, he's checking the lights in the back of the tractor, license plate, and again looking underneath for checking brakes, suspension, anything that's there, visible air lines, visible frame, etc. Looking in, you can check the landing gear, make sure that everything's intact, no debris on the landing gear because it's been in a gravel driveway or parking lot, all secured. You can check the fifth wheel connection inside to make sure that the clamp is actually shows in there too. You can look right up into the fifth wheel. Moving down alongside the trailer itself, check all conspicuity tapes there. He's got signal lights functioning on the side. If there were any cargo securement, if it was a flatbed, and upper lights, clearance lights, etc. Anything, any cross members protruding from van trailers. Now going underneath the start of the trailer duals, you're looking in here for the airlines. Underneath, are they secured? No damage evident. Again, it's repetitive, but you're looking at the same things. Always remember, start with the wheels, fasteners, hubs, tires, the depth, no tires touching each other. And then if you're underneath, you're going back in to look at the push rod travels. This vehicle here itself, if you go underneath there, Rob, and show the brake area, it's air ride suspension, all bags are inflated. But if you transported yourself in the front of the trailer, in between, you can go right up underneath and look into the underside of the trailer, sorry. There's the disc brake system on this trailer, but there's a lot of vehicles out there still with push rods. And I stressed before that, you don't leave that one push rod out of being checked. I always said before that it's not that hard to check your brakes. There's all kinds of tattletale systems out there, but even putting on zip ties, putting on cheap zip ties with the brakes relaxed, on brake application, that zip tie travels out. It gives the driver a pretty good indicator that it's within or outside of the adjustment limits. So spend a couple of cents and put those on very quickly and easily because, again, one brake out of adjustment can cause a whole lot of grief and a whole lot of money. So make it easy for the drivers to look at. Again, they don't have to climb on their backs to see those brakes out of adjustment. They can just merely shine the light through. Look at the opposite side, you'll see the push rods. Look from the opposite side when you're going up the passenger side and across, and you'll generally see the opposite side push rod. So, already by regulation, all push rods have to have a marking on there for adjustment limits. And some of these brake manufacturers are doing a color-coded system, so be careful that you don't, that disappears in our environment very quickly. So a zip tie can be a pretty quick and cheap method compared to a $490 ticket plus. So he's opened up the back trailer doors here. He's checked for any cargo securement in this case. And then as well, the lights are checked on the back. He's got the signal lights. Some of the newer vehicles, as you all know, have the lighting system, sequential lighting that runs it through it. Makes it a lot easier for your drivers, that's for sure.
Okay.
Closing up the trailer doors so all lights in it were checked. Now at this point, it's for time-wise, it's repetitive again. Everything going up the same side. We're not going to go through that today, as Vicki said. No defects were placed into it today, so we're not going to go up and waste everybody's time going up the other side again because it's repetitive. But so steps 9 back up to 2. Under the hood, you're checking the opposite side of the steer axles now. Closing up the hood, if it hasn't already been closed and checked in its initial, you're going into the cab. So if Rob gets up to the cab area, checks to make sure that the securement and everything else of the sleeper hatch there, he's got his safety gear, there's flares, there's extra fluids, it's all there.
Well, that put me right
Oh,
in.
there you go, in the cab. Okay, so Rob's got himself into the cab now. We'll start the in-cab part of the inspection. So he's just checking the steering wheel at this point, just checking for the steering wheel free play in it, rocking it back and forth to see if there's any excessive play. So I marked that off as condition of the steering wheel satisfactory. Now while he's there, he can check the horns, be it city horn as well as highway horn. And all's good. Now checking the gauges. All the gauges are lit up, functioning and everything okay. Lower warning devices functioning, buzzer and or light. Gotta have one or the other, preferably both. Check the windshield wipers for squirting. Check defroster as well at this point. We're at that time of the year. And with the messy roads as well. Make sure everything's functioning properly. And seat belts, seats, and everything are all functional for him. And any other safety equipment that could be inside. I see there's a fire extinguisher down there on the floor just by the driver's seat. We saw that down between the door and the seat. That's all good. And that's pretty much covering everything on the inside of the cab.
All right, there you go.
And it's it.
So that concludes the pre-trip. We're going to open up everything to question and answer. But before we get to that part, Ian, again, final insights, thoughts as we move ahead before we open up to question and answer.
Yeah.
Just seeing that.
Yeah. Again, you can't stress, as you said, but professional drivers. It's not the day where you just got a license and drove. It's now. It's a trade almost, the way that the schooling and that's developing and training is the biggest key in any learning of anything in any trade. So had pre-trip training been done and been proper over my years of being on the job, in 28 years, I've seen evolution of things happening, and that would have saved multiple lives. I attended those accidents and I worked alongside of the families of loved ones that wheels flew off and killed, the Maronas, Terrells, Andersons, Campbells. They attended our blitzes and stuff, and you felt for those people. One proper inspection could have saved those lives, and that's why the laws are there and why we have to make sure they're properly trained. We don't want this to happen to yours or mine or anybody else's that shares the road.
Very, very well said, and it's true. Like I say, if we're not going intentionally, not doing it for a reason, it's just.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I think with that, we're going to switch over to the chat line and answer any questions. We'll be right back.